Welcome to the workshop, which I think is the best today. So if you were like hesitating whether you're in the right room, let me tell you, this is the best session. I saw most of the presentations on the future of terrorism technology. We are going to have 6 speakers, including the chairperson, me, and I will introduce each one of them before her lecture. But let me just present the titles so you know what we are going to have. And this is a very thrilling start of the day. Mr. Daniel Cohen, the title will be Between Imagined Reality and Real Terrorism. Mr. Nitzan Levi, Deepfake Technology. Colonel Reserve Eyal Dykan, the changes in the paradigm of terror in the deep web. Professor Sabrina Schoenrock, European AI regulations. Professor Gabriel Weimann, that's me, going darker and deeper, new trends in online terrorism and violent extremism. And finally, Ms. Jennifer Woodard, the future of Metaverse for terrorist recruitment, training, and radicalization. What could be more interesting than that? Now, about the rules of the game. We have 2 hours, 6 speakers. So each speaker will have 12 to 15 minutes, but not more. To make sure, now you know this is Champions League soccer days, I have yellow and red. Any soccer fan knows what I mean. When I wave the yellow, you have 2 more minutes. That's the warning. When you get the red, you're out. I mean, like really out. So if you see the yellow, be aware, 2 more minutes. After the entire presentation, the full volume of the presentation, we will have about half an hour for discussions, questions and answer, whatever. So let's start, and the first speaker will be Mr. Daniel Cohen. Please take your place there while I introduce you. We will dim the light so you'll see the presentations when there are presentations, and there will be 5 of them. Daniel Cohen is a research fellow in the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism, ICT, at Weimann University, Herzliya. He is the head of the diplomatic counter-terrorism program at the Abba Evan Institute for International Diplomacy at Weimann University. And he also serves as a senior researcher at the Blatavnik Interdisciplinary Cyber Research Center and Yuval Ne'eman's Workshop for Science. You're working a lot. Okay, Daniel Cohen, the floor is yours. 12 minutes.
Thanks, Professor. Now I'm under stress, so I will skip the small talk and start with the presentation. So good morning, everybody. Thanks, first of all, for ICT for inviting me, even that I'm a research fellow of ICT. And thanks for the kind introduction. Now, let's see if it switches. Yes. Okay, so can I speak without the microphone? It's okay? Maybe I'll take it from here. Only from here? Yeah. Ah. No, because I want to see you waving me. Okay, so I will speak about between imagined reality and real terrorism. We're working on a project trying to identify trends of emerging technology and the impact of it on actually offline terrorist attacks. Another thing that is simultaneously trying to understand policy, standards, regulations towards emerging technologies, exactly like the ones that we have here in this workshop. So first of all, let's look on the first silent movie from 1896, Brothers Lumiere in Paris. And when we speak about the myth of it, it is that people were like freaking out and running out of the theater because it's the first time they're seeing a movie, even that it's silent, and really thinking that, but thinking that it may run in them over. Now, it's a myth, of course, probably. Now we see it differently, or the impact of it from what it was in real time. Second, example of technology, this time to the mass population, not to elites in the theater, is Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, 1838, when a radio play terrifies a nation And people like really thinking that will be an invasion of aliens. Again, we're starting to see now more literature on it saying it's only 2% of population. It didn't have rating back then. And only like 10% of them were really impacted or influenced by it. But that's another example of technology and the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we as civilians can fear for something that is unknown. So our whole discussion on the metaverse, even that we have examples from the gaming world for the last decade, is still very unknown to define and to understand what will be actually the impact, the use of it by terror organization, but actually the use of it by any other bad actor in the field of, I don't know, cyber criminals, state-sponsored attacks, and so on. Now I'll give you another example that is more recently. We skip history. And let's speak about an attack, nothing to do with 2 examples that we saw so far. This time, 10 years ago, 9 years ago was actually, same time that there's a civil war in Syria, and Syrian regime is using chemical weapons. A hacking group, amorphic but affiliated with the Syrian government, at least pro-Assad regime, takes responsibility for an attack during the time that President Obama is threatening that he will use kinetic weapons against Syrian regime if they won't stop using chemical weapons. And then there's a simple defacement attack on the Twitter account of AP, defacing it and saying, look, breaking 2 explosions in the White House and Barack Obama is injured. And we can see the real-time effect on it in the stock exchange, like collapsing for a couple of minutes, but then again, popping up. And of course, this is not something that most of us remember, so it didn't have an impact in history. But that is exactly the example that I will suggest that we need to take under our own assessment when we're trying to analyze and understand what will be the intertwine between reality and imagination, but also between technology and the use of it by terrorism. Now, ISIS, of course, heavily use of technology, and also I put it here like examples from Hamas. We're already starting to see this evolution. First of all, of course, you can see on the left corner the use of social media, of trying to recruit, use it for psyops, use it for influence people to commit spontaneous terror attacks. I remember a professor that you said, it was in a conference years ago, saying that there's no such thing lone wolf because they're acting like a gang working together, and it's never spontaneous. I agree with them that I do think that we saw ISIS trying to do something really interesting, that is defacing social media accounts, publishing hit lists, for example, of people that were attacking them in Syria from a US Army or other coalition members, and providing actually intelligence for people to go out on the offline web and attack them. We didn't really see it on the ground. Another example on the right corner, up on the right side, the first app by ISIS, a software developer, Ivy League USA, originally from Palestinian origins, that develops an app that becomes, the tide of the gliding becomes one of the most popular apps on Apple, and it removes. And what it does, it actually provides videos of attacks by ISIS on the ground in Syria and Iraq. Last, the use of cryptocurrency, in this case, Hamas campaign for donations. So we see this evaluation between social media, and we see it now progress to what we're speaking in this panel on emerging new technologies like blockchain, AI, and others that will probably affect the field of counterterrorism. Now, let's go to the business that we're speaking here. Next generation technological enablers. So I divided to 3 main ones. We spoke about gaming today, but I see gaming as a domain and not as a technology, so I'll put it a bit aside. We have interactive experience like VR, AR. Of course, in gaming, it's been used for the last decade. The digital ledger technology like blockchain, and intelligence demonstrated by machines like AI. So these are the facilitators, the platforms, the technological enablers, and the question is, what we will see by terror organization using this kind of technology. And I will say that it's very hard to analyze it because we have missing patches that we still don't understand how it can be used. So we have cryptocurrency on the left corner. In the middle, I posted the VR and AR, and we have AI. Now, AI, we're starting to see a trend in the cybersecurity in the last 2 years. The use of AI for attacks, at least as a trend, it's a big hype, a big buzz, but we didn't see it on the ground yet. But we do see attacks against AI models by cyber criminals. So we can understand that there's a potential here, but for me, it's not really still understood yet how it will be used by terror organizations. Where we will see it is a combination between deepfake, of course, VR, AR. If we're talking about augmented reality or virtual reality, in a domain where people can sit in their own room with glasses or something and live in this online world, of course, there's a potential to use it heavily for recruitment, psyops, influence operation, and encouraging radicalization. On the other side, I will say that the correlation between VR, AR, and cryptocurrency, or NFTs, blockchain, for money laundering, for funding of operation, is something that we see already today. So it's not something that we need to prepare actually for it, because we already understand it and already we see at least responses and solutions, less on the policy level like we see in AI, but we do see there that there is a understanding that this is something that needs to be countered. The main question will be how it will look like on the metaverse, for example, the combination between all three for organized or non-organized terrorist attacks. Now think about it. We had this offline world, the reality, where we saw attacks that were conducted only on the offline world. Then we saw the next evolution of spontaneous, if you agree or not, on lone wolves, yes or no, but we saw attacks that started or being coordinated on the online world and then being operated on the offline world. What will look like an attack on the metaverse? Will it be online to online, or will we see it as a spill over to the offline world? Because we still don't know how it will affect us as human beings. We will live a life only on the online world back then, or yes or no? That's a question. Not us, of course, the next generations. So this is something that is still a big question for me. On the combination between all of them, I would say that these are the main activities that I would suggest that we will see, using it by a terrorist organization to exploiting of the metaverse. Now, as I mentioned, we also researched the policy steps being taken. On AI, there's heavy discussions. We will have a lecture on that today. We see guidelines and we see policies by governments, by international organizations. There's not many discussion on the others, only on the academic world. I was in a workshop on deepfake 2 weeks ago. Really brilliant, really interesting, how to create deepfakes. But the main questions that we had as audience was on the ethical side of it. What's the discussion? Because it will be used for disinformation, misinformation, and any other activities that the terrorists can take advantage of it. For now, it's being sold to Hollywood for movies, for ads. I don't see any discussion. We didn't find actually almost nothing on deepfake, but we do see it, of course, on centralized or trying to centralize currencies. So we do see it on the cryptocurrency side. At least there's a start of providing policies. So I see it as a vacuum, and I think that we need to start to prepare to that and look at it in a more like an ecosystem between those three technologies to do so. And again, we have lessons learned from the gaming world that we can start this kind of discussions that will lead to policies in this field. Less than 12 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, you mentioned, Eyal, Daniel, you mentioned a vacuum, and you spoke about deepfake. I think you'll be excited like me to hear the next speaker, who will speak about deepfake. Now, if it will be at the same level of your lecture last year, it will be a real experience. I remember your lecture last year. It was shocking. It was innovative. Please keep the standard and keep the time.
I think it's the same lecture. No.
Let me just introduce the speaker. Mr. Nitzan Levi is a fellow at the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism here at Weimann University. He's a cybersecurity expert and offers consultancy services in the fields of governance, regulation, software development, architecture, application security, risk management, and cyber training. How about marriage?
No.
No services. Okay.
No.
The floor is yours.
That's the only one. The presentation? Next. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I can't see you because of the lighting, but good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this session. Oh, it's okay. Well, no, everything is fine. I think they can see. Well, I think that this is a very interesting topic, first of all, because I'm lecturing on it, and second, as Daniel said, this is basically what we see as the future of terrorism. This is the future of our cybersecurity threat landscape. Because, you know, technology is basically very natural, right? You can do whatever you want with it, but what we are trying to do now is taking a proactive way of trying to analyze how bad actors will utilize the technologies of deepfakes in the year to come, okay? So for those of you who don't know what deepfakes is, so deepfake is basically an AI-based technology that is used to generate fake information in images, sound, video, and so on. It's rather a new technology. And the usage of AI in a neural network basically began in 2014 in images, and later we saw it in 2015 when they start using it for videos. So it started in a good way. By the way, this is my heritage. This is based basically on a technology that enables you to take one picture and change it into a deepfake video. This is really nice quality. Of course, this has already started several years ago. We have already seen it in Samsung. They had Samsung labs in the UK were able to generate even a better quality. But again, this is public available, and it's really nice. So it started at the universities, like I said. 2014, the first usage of generative adversarial networks. It started with analyzing images, and then later on it moves to movies, okay, to analyze videos. Of course, the idea was nice. If we can use AI to analyze video, we can try to work on new researches in the medical field, or maybe you can use it to predict how asteroids move. NASA can use it in a way, you know, to try to predict what is the course of an asteroid coming, whether it's coming near Earth, what will be the future courses. This is really interesting, trying to shift the responsibility to the AI. So it started, and again, it was a very good idea. Okay? But then the information, of course, around 2017 leaked to the world. And of course, when people received these powerful technologies, they used it for, well, mainly porn. Okay? Until today, most of the deepfake videos are basically focused on the porn. Of course, this is one of the first. This is Gal Gadot. And we've already seen applications like the one on the left. You see, this is deepfake nude, where basically you can take any image and just remove the clothes from that person. So it started as something, I think that it already showed us from the beginning that, you know, when you give people that kind of technology, it could be used for good purposes, but again, it was used for something else, right, to spread disinformation. So of course, we had this, and of course, a lot of Nicolas Cage images. We have the very big community of Nicolas Cage video online. And again, you do have some really nice usage for the technology of deepfake. So like I said, the technology itself is natural, okay? So, for example, this is from Adobe. It's called Smart Portrait. Let's assume that you're with your family in Paris and you're taking a very nice picture. And one of the kids wasn't smiling. True story. So again, you can just use that technology and you can move it. Okay, you can change the image. You can make yourself look younger. You can remove the way that you look that way. You want to smile more, you want to smile less. And again, you don't need to be an expert. Okay, you can see that? You don't need to be an expert just to play with that. It's just a plugin, plug and play, and you take your image. And if you want to look more surprised, you want to look more happy, you want to look more serious for a job interview or something like that, you can do that. And again, you can play with it. And we've already seen really nice usage, you know, in the civilian industry. Using deepfakes, for example, we've seen it in the movies. For example, one of the actresses in this French TV series was isolated due to COVID, and basically they took another actress, they switched her, and then they used deepfake technologies to replace her face. So again, we've already seen a lot of nice things, like they said, and we anticipate that this kind of usage basically will evolve more and more. We already have actresses that are selling their faces, and you can buy, you know, for your campaign, someone that will be with you for the next coming years, and basically you buy the way that they appear, okay? So, of course, not only just nice things, because otherwise we wouldn't be here, and basically the usage of deepfake, or the use of videos in the way that can become a threat to our society was already discussed, you know, since 2018. I mean, it started, I remind you, in 2015, but already in 2018, people started to understand the threat that deepfake can pose. This is Senator Marco Rubio. What he said is, in the old days, if you wanted to threaten the United States, you needed 10 aircraft carrier and nuclear weapons and long-range missiles. And increasingly, all you need is the ability to produce a very realistic fake video. And this is exactly what we see, the problem in this technology. And you know, when we started passing these lectures and also talking about this technology, it seemed like something that is going to happen in future to come. But you know, each year, the technology is just getting better and better. And already also in 2018, we've also seen, you know, addressed to Coates, the Office Director of National Intelligence, 3 congressmen basically asked him an assessment of how foreign governments, foreign intelligence services, or foreign individuals could use deepfake technologies to harm the United States. And since 2019, basically, deepfake, misinformation, along with cybersecurity, terrorism, and nuclear weapons are basically on the top of the US top threats. And, you know, looking from February on Ukraine-Russia war, I think that this was the first place that we've seen the usage of deepfake used by one country against another. Of course, you know, in April, the Korean government issued this warning on Twitter. Russia plans to launch a new deepfake with President Zelensky. And, you know, that was in April, and they were not mistaken, because the Russians basically did that, okay? They had a video of Zelensky, you know, telling that the war has ended and basically told them to surrender. Of course, looking at that deepfake was not really at good quality, and no one fell for that. Also, the Koreans were, you know, prepared that that will happen. And again, without going into the sides, as the Koreans also did that, you know. And you also have a deepfake video of President Putin basically telling the Russian soldiers to drop their weapons and go home, you know. So again, I think that this is the first place that we've seen deepfakes, and I know that if you see the video and you know how President Putin talks or how he behaves, you will know, you will know that I'm scared here because I'm waiting for the pages. No, last year. So basically, you know that it's not him. But again, this is the first thing that it's possible with that technology. So basically, what we believe is that between, you know, being optimistic, between 5 to 7 years, every creator, every person with a cell phone will be able to produce a really convincing 100% fake video of anybody, okay, including the voice. Even today, you are able to create a convincing deepfake voice and mimic someone's voice only using by a 20-minute sample of his sound, or the way that he speaks, okay? So here we have 12, so you need, okay. So let's try to go, do we have a problem? So first of all, the technology is better. We also see a variety of global communities trying to help you create deepfakes if you want. We see tons of services, and we also see a lot of option to hire teams abroad, whether it's in China or India, that will help you create your own deepfakes. And we also see on the other end that basically you have what we call market failure. It means that you don't have a lot of investments in technologies that should be able to monitor and alert on deepfakes. And you see, this is the problem with deepfakes. They are created really quickly using an AI, and the only way to identify them is basically using an AI against them, right? So I think we have a rare opportunity here. Like I said, we still have a few years according to what we believe. We should raise awareness, we should implement laws, and that you will have the next session. We should definitely work with the content provider to take responsibility on what's being published or pushed to people. And last, we should develop systems that are able to recognize and help us with the war in deepfake. Now, I will end with this. Jeff Kennedy said, "For the great enemy of truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic." And this is exactly what deepfake are offering our enemies. They are offering not a lie, but an alternative reality, where they are trying to sell the people that believe in them, you know, an alternative way of what they are doing is correct. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nitzan. As always, interesting and on time. I'm really looking forward to hear the next speaker, Eyal Dykan, because his lecture will be focusing on deep web and the confusion probably with deepnet and darknet and so on, and terrorism. Just a short introduction. Colonel Reserve Eyal Dykan is currently a fellow at ICT Reichman University and founder and president of the Active Fence company in Israel.
Good morning. Since I don't want you to sleep, so I don't have a presentation, I will speak and we will know what to do with people that are trying to be asleep. So a few words about me. It's important not for the resume. It's important to my lecture about the things that I was doing in the past and what I'm doing today, and I can do a comparison with the old world and what we are facing now. So I was serving in a few Intel units in Unit 504 when I was serving as a case officer. So my looking is, or my perception is, when I was dealing with real terrorists on real life. And my last position in Israel Defense Intelligence was the head of the psychological warfare unit. When I was doing influence for good reasons on the other sides, and as you know that Israel is located in a bad neighborhood, so that was my expertise, how to influence people and how to fight terrorists and other challenges. So the things I'm speaking today is a sort of knowledge what we were doing, or how the systems of the people that are trying to fighting terrorism, and how it's look today when, as they said, I'm now the president and the co-founder of Active Fence, what we are doing, and I'm not doing a selling point for Active Fence, everything is all right. But the unique thing that we are doing in Active Fence is exactly doing what I was doing, but from the other side. We are getting legally into thousands of closed groups in any applications. There are 54 or 55 known today in any language, and getting the content and taking the content and giving the content, of course, after triage it, either to big tech companies that they are part of the fighting against terror. You should know that even the UN has a system or sort of a delegation that call themselves Tech Against Terror, because we can't fight the terror without taking care about the platforms that are giving the opportunity to the terror to rise. So what we are doing, we are getting into those thousands of groups, understanding what is going there, and while they are trying to upload it to the regular application that you are using, such as YouTube and other applications, they are stop it from uploading it. But looking at the behavior of those terrorists and giving me the challenge to understand few things. First of all, what is a terror group? The question is a group that developing tools to hack or to steal money, and they have connection, because we are seeing that cross platforms, as I told you. Is it part of the terror group? I think yes, because if we will define it for a narrow place, we are missing evidence, we are missing habits of terrorists. So who are the terrorists today? And the other things is, what is exactly a terror attack? So my main say is that we are facing, because of developing of social, and by the way, when I'm dealing with closed groups, either if it's in the deep web or people are using the term dark web, for us it's the same thing. The deep web is the rest of the web. The regular web or the clear web is between 8 to 12% of the web. That today we are facing it, I'm saying the community or the intelligence community facing with this challenge in a good success, because we have tools. We have tools that we can scrape the surface or the clear web. While the deep web, it's everything that it's not indexed. So if you are not getting into the groups manually, and you don't using an AI machinery to get inside and to understand the enormous attractions and things that are happening there, we are losing our face of enemy. So the changing of this paradigm is the changing of the other side in front of what we are doing. So first of all, as you know, we used to work in front of an enemy that has his own hierarchy, has his own areas that he's working, and we used to work, I called it in the pyramid tool, when I'm taking part of the pyramid and I hope to see what is going down there. So now in nowadays, it's changed. They are using the deep web for a few, when I'm saying they, it's terrorist organizations or terrorist actors. They have two layers of using the deep and the dark web. First of all is for infrastructures. Buying, selling, contacting, and as you know, even today, it's not speaking is not a language, is not a challenge. You can translate whatever you want. You can contact with whom you want in any platform you want. And this is our second challenge. We don't have a real boundary. And if we are not holding like them on the other side, the Intel, cross-platform, we will miss it because it's too much. If we won't have machinery to hold it, we will lose the full view. They are using it in the layer of structure, as I told you, to buy, to sell, to contact, even to collect information. We are concentrating in few areas in our company. When I'm saying we, so we started in terror. We got through hate speech, but for me, people that are using hate speech, it's sort of terror. You can see it now in Germany. I just was invited for your main organization. How, because you have a new law, I understood how to fight this terror speech and to prevent terror. So a real example, a group of, it's a Nazi group in LA, want to do terror attack. It's not shooting or something like that. It's throwing things against the rabbi in LA of Chabad. Now you can see the things that I was mentioned. They are consulting between them. Where is the location? They are using Google Maps. They are getting into groups of Chabad members as a cover and trying to collect information. But the weird thing that we saw, that the answer of what they are asking, or it's coming not from the US. The answer was from South America. And it's very interesting what they get them. They got answers that exactly where is the Chabad synagogue, but it was an operational advice not to stand in the mornings and waiting for the rabbi to come, as the rest of the group was looking in the Google, what are the terms or the time of the prayer, because they want to stand in the right time, in the right position to humiliate the rabbi. He's telling them, look, Chabad is starting their prayer not at 8 o'clock, at 10 or 11 o'clock. So be aware not to stand in the street, because otherwise people will start to see that something is strange. So this is an example of our lack of understanding how to fight it, because now we don't have boundaries. When I was the head of Unit 504 in the Gaza Strip, in front of me, I knew what is the scheme of the enemy, what I should prevent. But now I don't have boundaries. The other part of the deep web is using the deep web or the platforms or the communication to do a terror attack. Because of that, I told you, I don't know today what is a terror attack. Is using or buying a very simple tool, a malicious tool, a DDoS tool, and starting to attack any formal Israeli platform and deny it for 20 hours, let's say, every request site. Is it a terror attack? I think yes, because what is terror? We used to see, now we have the memory of Munich, and in my mind, when I'm saying the word terror, I see the guy with the mask standing in the balcony. But no, today is the things that I gave you. Is using terror attack of frightening people by using fake news. And when I'm saying fake news, we are not even defining exactly what is fake news. By the way, the biggest tech companies are using unauthentic, coordinated behavior. You need those three things to do a fake news. So I saw the, you remember, I'm a colonel and I'm a hero, so I'm not afraid. 2 minutes. You spoke, Danny, about the Metaverse. So we are seeing Metaverse SimCity with codes that we're getting through the Telegram, getting into like a courtroom or something like that, and they get lectures of extremist sheikhs. So we have it already in the Metaverse. So these are the challenges. How to be good and to fight it. My advice is, first of all, learn the enemy. We are not stupid as fighters against terror, but as I see it now in front of Intel organizations, we are far behind them. We are still using a lot of analysts to get manually into closed groups. It's not the way. We can't do it like that. We need to use an AI machinery. We need to do it cross-platform, not to stick on one thing that we know, because otherwise we won't see the big picture and understanding and define better what we are going to fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Eyal. The three first presentations spoke about what the bad guys are doing. Maybe it's time to ask the question, what can the good guys do? And for that, we are honored to have with us Professor Dr. Sabrina Schoenberg, who is a professor of public law at the Berlin School of Economics and Law. She has been the dean of the Department of Police and Security Management, and her research and teaching concentrate on fundamental and human rights, important issue that we didn't discuss yet, in the context of policing as well as public service and disciplinary law. Furthermore, which is really special, Professor Schoenberg is a judge at the Constitutional Court of Berlin since July 2014. So, Your Honor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. A very warm welcome to everybody, and thank you for inviting me for this workshop. Yes, we talk now about what is the possibilities of the good guys. So I hope you won't be that disappointed, because it's a legal view, and of course, you know, sometimes legal and ethical framework is an obstacle for for law enforcement and for the things the police and the intelligence wanted to do. So it's a legal and a science perspective, but we have, of course, an applicational approach on science and work together with the police and other actors. So I want to talk about, I skipped this about dimensions of deepfakes because we heard it already from the experts, what's going on with deepfakes and what's the risks of deepfakes, how they can manipulate political decision making and do criminal things. So I skipped to the EU as a regulator of AI and detection of deepfakes. So we heard from Ronan Barr, for example, that it's important that we have a regulation of AI. And the European Union started a draft, an approach to regulate AI. And after some tries in April 2021, they published the new draft of the European Commission for Regulation on AI. And for the Commission, it was important that AI regulation fits to and finds a balance between controlling deepfakes and the respecting fundamental rights and union values. So what are conflicting aims for the draft regulations? Ensure that AI systems placed on the union market are safe and respecting existing law, of course, fundamental rights, and by making possible that new inventions of AIs show how to deal with deepfakes in a proper way, but not only for the deepfakes that are used by privates or private organizations. We also have, of course, the regulations for law enforcement, for police, for example. And there, the EU, they started a risk-based approach of AI regulation. So they say there are various levels of risks that require different responses, of course. Prohibited AI systems, with exceptions, of course, high-risk AI systems and low-level AI systems. And in that case, you can imagine what is a very high-risk AI system. It's, of course, a system that interferes in human rights also. So that's why there's a big discussion about these regulations, this draft. And there was one example about facial recognition that would be a prohibited AI system. So they made clear, oh no, there must be exceptions. There must be exceptions when it deals with national security, with crimes and criminal investigations. So I give you this recital, but in this risk-based regulation, you will see that there are a lot of exceptions. So one thing, there are not enough exceptions, but for example, civil organizations think there are too much exceptions. So that's what we, the academical staff, deals with in this moment, thinking about how can we concretize these risk-based approach. Another thing is, what do we do with special effects on law enforcement? Because we will have of course, this is possible to use AI for deepfakes detecting, but you have always to respect the accountability, regulations. So related to the concept, you have to care for transparency, fairness, explainability, efficiency, responsiveness, responsibility, integrity. All these has been shown, and it is not clear that, for example, law enforcement intends to protect, for instance, investigation methods of the AI-supported activities, and they want to be, that transparent and want to show how the methods work. That's, of course, a problem in the real life, in the application of these rules. And another problem will be, perhaps it is a little bit over-optimistic, belief in the capacity of all national supervisory authorities to conduct these verifications of transparency, if they know, we can explain what we are doing there. That's another problem. And so I talk about problems, you see. And the third one we stress on is how could we accurate training data for the reliability of AI applications. The training data, for these data exist also general data protection, all these things, and the EU has a local approach, so we can't buy dates from China and say the regulation doesn't exist now for us. These are problems, and the German perspective to this is, of course, if this draft will become real in the next years, so we have to see what we do with our rule of law and implement it. And, but by the way, now we start with several projects funded by the German government, for example, Fake ID or Viking. These are projects that are that stress on the detection of deep fakes, and so our researchers' work is now with a sub-project to do this legal and ethical frame for this detector. So that is a draft, and perhaps we come in contact about these research projects and can learn from your experience, but of course by accepting these rule of law that we have, of course, to implement. So, thank you.
Vielen Dank, Professor Schoenrock. Switch places. It's really a pleasure to present the next speaker, myself. Needless to say that the next speaker is free of any limits of time and can speak it. No. Can I have my presentation, please? Introducing the speaker very shortly, I know him well. I'm Professor Gabriel Weimann. I'm a professor of communication at Haifa University. I used to chair the Department of Communication for 12 years. Now I'm a professor emeritus at Haifa University and a full professor here at Weimann School of Government and a senior researcher at ICT. I published 9 books, 4 of them on online terrorism, and about 200 scientific publications. Most of them deal with terrorism and the media, terrorism online, and so on. So let's start. What I would like to use my time for, as I do every year here, and mind you, being an old cat, I have been here since the first conference of ICT, 21 years ago. I was the keynote speaker there. 21 years ago, I spoke about online terrorism, and the first question from the audience was, do you really think that terrorists will use the internet? 21 years ago. So every year, 19 years, I've been here. And what I'm trying to do is update the audiences with my recent findings. So I'll do the same today, focusing on 4 findings from our studies in recent year or 2. On dead drops, I'll explain the terms, migration to the clouds, the secret language of hate speech, and the power of the algorithm. So these are some of our findings. They come from a long-term project that we have been doing for over 23 years, the dark side of the internet. Our project is started in 1998, 24 years ago, when we were probably the first to start monitoring terrorist websites. At that time it was websites, today it's social media. We archive, download and archive and code the material, both visual and textual, and we are funded by a long list of funding institutions, because to do this work, you need money. All our findings are reported, even those that I will present today, and I will show you the links to find the publications if needed. So many books, many publications, many articles, and so on, mostly accessible online, free of charge. Let me argue that what we found is 4 stages, since we are here since 1998, monitoring terrorist presence online, and today also violent extremist groups online. The first stage was websites only. Then terrorists interested in adding more interactive platforms started using forums and chat rooms, adding that to the websites. Then stage 3 was the emergence of social media. On top of the websites and the interactive forums and chat rooms, they added social media, all of them, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, what have you, TikTok too, by the way. And stage 4, well, currently, is adding to all of this the use of darknet. Now, the trends that I would like to focus on today, what we found, are challenges, new challenges. There is a dialectic game here between terrorism and counter-terrorism, between those who are using online terrorism to those who try to defend us. And the dialectic game means the terrorists are learning what we do and try to respond. So let me show some of the responses that are really challenges. Now, what are dead drops? Anyone knows who the guy is in the picture? Smiling. Yeah, thank you. This is John le Carré, the spy novels author, who wrote about Smiley, the chief spy. And spies use dead drops. What are dead drops? Dead drop is when a spy wants to exchange information with another spy. According to John le Carré, in the old time of spy world, they used to hide it somewhere and mark with chalk or color. They never met. They left it, and the other guy came and picked it up. Let it be microfilm or any other. What are dead drops today? They are virtual dead drops. Terrorists are knowing that we are monitoring them, that we try to find them, that we try to find the communicator, the producers, the disseminators, and the audiences. Now, they find ways to react, and one of the interesting ways, and the most innovative one, is dead drop. That is that I leave a place online for you to find, but it takes 2 stages. In our study last year, we looked at the various platforms used by terrorist groups, like the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and even Al-Shabaab, the one in Africa, to store and disseminate material on online dead drops. What I mean by that, and there were some research, I focus more on the method. We looked at how they direct audiences by a 2-step flow, 2 stages. The first one, I will let you get to the information if I'm sure that you are trustable or that you are one that I want to access the information. I'll give you the key, but at the second stage. So I'll hide the information somewhere, as I'll show you, probably on the cloud, and I lead you there, but not everyone can access it. And certainly, this 2-stage type of information or communication flow guarantees them more security, more safety. So we looked at various services that they used to store this information. You have all these cloud services, so they can interact with you on a social media, on a Telegram, on Twitter, on Facebook, but only at the second stage, if they trust you, they will lead you to the cloud with the information. They will provide you with the key. These are the virtual dead drops. So you won't be able to read it all, but if you're interested in some of our findings, I really speed it up. You can find our reports. Either the full report is an article published recently in Perspective on Terrorism, the dead drops of online terrorism, free access, or in a special report, a more detailed one that we published here at ICT. Let me move to the second one, clouds. Now, all of us know what clouds are. Instead of storing our information, our pictures, our movies, our data, on the computer itself, on disk on key, and so on, we store it on free clouds that are actually virtual libraries. Now, terrorists learn about it too, and especially about the safety of some of those clouds. That is, instead of opening their libraries to anyone, which they don't want to do, they want to select cloud services that provide them anonymity, that will provide them safety. And what we noticed in recent years, that they are moving their information, their libraries, their instructions, their communication to such libraries, such cloud. The most alarming one is the most recent finding that we found. This is a new study. We just completed it a month ago on one of the most popular internet archive. It's an American company that established a huge library, the biggest, the largest library online. It's called Internet Archive. Very valuable, very important. We use it to find, if you want, movies, books, old publications, newspaper, everything is there, but also terrorists are there. Once they realized that Internet Archive is providing them with the ability to store information secretly, securely, nobody can harm it, nobody can. Then Internet Archive became a popular cloud service for modern terrorists. So just to give you indications. So we did a content analysis of terrorist online material and extremist, right-wing extremist material on Internet Archive, this public, democratic, liberal library. Just look at the numbers. This is the number of movies, audio files, text files, images by Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Hezbollah brigades in Iraq. Same findings about neo-Nazi groups, white supremacy, racist groups using Internet archives. Look at the numbers and you see how many items are stored there. Again, if you're interested in our findings, please just use my name on Google and you'll find Open Archive of Hate. This study was published 2 weeks ago. And the third one, out of 4, so I'm running out of time, I know, is what we call digital dog whistles. The way terrorists are communicating online, how many, yellow? Oh, no, not yet. The chairman has some advantages, no? Digital dog whistles is a study we did on the new language of terrorists. Now, terrorists know that if they communicate online openly, they could be found, traced, monitored, identified, and maybe arrested. So they use a new language, and they established dog whistles, or those whistles that only dogs can hear. So what about the new language that they use in order to communicate among themselves online without being identified? So we did a study. Here's the publication. You see some of the codes, Skypes, Skittles, and Yahoos. I'm sure most of you don't know the terms. This is the terms used by neo-Nazis, anti-Semite group, fascist group, extreme right-wing groups in the West for their online hate communication. So it's a new language. Codes are used, maybe the most popular that I guess some of you heard. They won't use Hitler because they know that it will be removed. So what's 88? HH. What's HH? Heil Hitler. That's a known example. But in that way, when we did our study, published already on far-right contents online, we revealed this secret language, and there are many of them. And the last element that I would like to focus on are the algorithm of evil. Again, a new study conducted only last year. As you know, social media are using algorithm, and we were faced with a vicious algorithm ourselves. 2 years ago, we did a study on hate speech on TikTok. Yes, TikTok, that innocent, seemingly innocent platform, is not that innocent. It is used also by terrorists and hate groups. And one of my research assistants, Natalie Masri, from England, called me one day and she said, you know, I used to spend nights and days looking for those videos of hate. Now I don't need to do that because TikTok has an algorithm that sends it to me. They profiled me, she said, as a hating Jews, as a hating Muslims, as a right-wing extremist, and I'm flooded by recommendations. This is the algorithm. Now, the algorithm can be, in many ways, the algorithm of evil. So last year we did a study. This is my last aspect of the presentation. Does the algorithm really promote hate and violence? To do that, we took 14 students from Weimann University, School of Government, divided them into 4. Each one had a new phone, unused before, new user number, and each group, there were 4 groups, 4 students each, contacted and searched one social media. Let it be Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. And it took 2 weeks, and I'm really hurrying with the findings, for the profiling, for the algorithm to profile them. And immediately, they were flooded with offers just for you or recommended for you with additional hate speech. So there is a vicious cycle. Just imagine, these are not students who do experiments, but these are young high school kids looking for information, studying Nazism, the history of terrorism, looking for information on bin Laden. And all of a sudden, they're flooded with this kind of finding. So these are our main findings. And actually, the merging of these 4 trends present a new challenge for those who try to fight hate speech and terrorism online. Thank you. If you wish to get any more information. Okay, we move to the next speaker. And the last one, Miss Jennifer Woodard, who suggested that I will change the title of the lecture and update it, and it's fine. AI for online threats, past, present, and future. May I quote a joke about it?
Absolutely.
The communication scholars, when they criticize journalists, they like to quote the case of an American journalist arriving to Israel and was questioned in the entrance. For how long did you come? He said, 3 days. 3 days, what for? He said, I'm writing a book on Israel. He said, can you write a book on Israel in 3 days? He said, yes. What will be the title of the book? He said, Israel, yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Okay.
So, resembling your title. Miss Woodard is an entrepreneur and a global technology marketing expert. She's a founding partner of Insect, I guess we heard about it, Intelligence, a Barcelona-based artificial intelligence. So you are from Barcelona?
No.
No.
Can you tell by my accent I'm not from Barcelona?
Okay. You lost yesterday, by the way, in football.
Exactly, you knew that.
Yeah. It's a startup specializing in the automated detection of criminal content online. In addition, Jennifer is a vice chair and external expert for the European Commission's Marie Curie Fellowship Program and was a member of the Commission's steering group for the competitiveness on the net. So, 12 to 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to try to be brief, even though it is a past, present, and future presentation. I wanted to talk to you today about, yes, the past, the recent past, in terms of basically everything related to online terrorism detection and AI, and the present and future of online threats and how AI can help. And I wanted to take a step back. So prior to the pandemic, I think I would come here year after year and we would talk a lot about the challenges that we were facing in terms of grappling with the detection of radical content on the internet and mainly social media, and the fight against terrorism and extremism. And one thing that's mentioned many times at this conference, even this year, is that, is this better? Does it matter? Okay. No, this is fine. Social media continues to be a massive problem. Social media companies continue to grapple with the problem, and even though there's been lots of advances in technology and lots of effort on their part, lots of things have changed since I've set foot in this conference many years ago, but not everything is all roses, okay? But when we take a look back, what we've been talking about for years and years is the challenge of basically finding needles in haystacks that are just dense forests of content, and just a reminder of some of the statistics that we talk about a lot in social media and what makes that such a daunting task, right? The number of tweets that are published every day, the billions and billions of pieces of Facebook content that are shared every day. It's in every single language. There are millions of slang terms. We have problems with fake users and bots. And the question for us was always, how do you detect an authentic security threat in a situation like this? And where we were then as AI researchers, we were looking to basically achieve this goal, right, by helping law enforcement agencies and mainly in the sphere of jihadi radicalization. So looking for content like what you see on the screen in order to detect not just terrorist-related content, but also to get ahead of the threat and kind of prevent those radicalization processes from happening. And what was clear to us as AI researchers was what we needed was a sound scientific methodology, and powerful AI was basically the only way to solve that problem and defeat these threats. So we've been working with this methodology for about 6 years. We've developed a lot of different scientific techniques in the areas in which we have expertise. This research has actually benefited greatly from the collaboration with the ICT, who are our partners and above all, they're our friends. And for this methodology, we've actually been awarded 4 times a Seal of Excellence from the European Commission for the excellence in the methodology. The last one we received just last month. So I won't go too deep into this because it's technical and scientific, but and there's not a lot of time. But I wanted to just basically focus on some of the things that we do. We employ natural language processing. This is able to understand human text. So when you train it properly with the right data sets, it can detect things like signals of terrorist-related content, radicalization. And obviously, like humans, the system is actually learning from the data that it's trained on. It's trained to recognize something that's seen before, and training on a wide range of data sets. We also use a methodology called network analysis, which is for understanding user connections. This is something that we really rely on. And of course, actually, let me go back. The interactions between the users, they actually tell a story. We're able to detect criminal activity, the spread of radicalization, understand how terrorists operate, how they're organized, and also understand what their communication patterns are. So as you can see, there's a lot of use cases for AI in this area of counterterrorism for understanding terrorist behavior. So we use natural language processing to understand what they're talking about. We use network analysis to understand how they're interconnected, who their leaders are, who their weakest links are, and what they'll do next is actually supplied by deep learning algorithms. So what we use deep learning for a variety of different things. Anomaly detection, we can figure out if users are behaving differently, which could point to something suspicious. Vulnerability, is there a group of users that might be more vulnerable to radicalization attempts? Fraud detection, so things like the Facebook page of an NGO actually being used for terrorist financing. Bot detection, geopolitical dynamics, psyops, all sorts of different things we're using deep learning for. So that was, the past, almost, the recent past. Those are the research areas that we've been focused on for many years. And, it sounds like all problems can be solved with AI. It sounds like there's a happy ending, but as I mentioned before, both social media companies and intelligence agencies are still struggling with this problem. So the threat actually has not been neutralized, and the threat landscape is always changing. And if you want to take a look at what I think are kind of some of the main themes in terms of the threat landscape's changes since we last spoke here a couple of years ago, is that now there are new platforms. The social media landscape itself has changed. A lot of the activity that's being detected by larger social media companies, they're making some progress. But there are fragmented threats that remain spread across niche platforms and other disparate sources across the web. Gaming and streaming platforms have emerged as a hotbed for extremism and terror planning. And then when we talk about new behaviors and new domains of extremism, there is, as we all know, new homegrown extremism, lone actors who are maybe not making some overt announcements online before they actually carry out their attacks. There's the emergence of the extreme right, which lots of panelists have talked about at this conference as a result as a byproduct, let's say, of the COVID-19 pandemic. And also related to COVID-19, we have AI-powered disinformation. So in my opinion, AI-powered disinformation is currently one of the biggest threats. It converges with extremism, and it's actually able to supercharge the phenomenon of disinformation, which before was being spread organically by individual users. So at this point, I think that the only key to unlocking all of this is basically AI and specifically machine learning. I don't have to tell you what a problem disinformation is. We've already talked a little bit about it. Security agencies and defense forces are actually really making a priority because it has the ability to influence human behavior, and it's a huge national security threat. Governments and militaries are focusing on it because it is a type of information warfare. And I think the scariest thing about disinformation is actually the evolution that it's taken. So as I mentioned before, we start with organic social media disinformation, which is basically being developed by regular users and spread by conspiracy theorists. It was problematic, but it had a limited impact. Where we are today is we're moving into a situation where we have disinformation as a service, where it's become an industry. It's actually being enabled by companies and other sorts of entities that are enabling bad actors to cheaply deploy large disinformation campaigns at scale across lots of different channels. And what is the most frightening to me is what's emerging now, which is AI-enabled disinformation campaigns. So this is what I call nuclear disinformation campaigns because of the potential impact that they have. So the characteristics of these campaigns are they're developed by AI. They're deployed by autonomous algorithms. They're capable of generating text, which is basically undetectable in terms of being fake or authentic. Can also generate authentic-looking users, and capable of the massive amplification of disinformation in very, very little time. So the challenge is actually, if these campaigns are being developed by complex AI, we actually need to defeat them with complex AI. They're using hundreds of millions of parameters in large language models to actually deploy these campaigns. So it's really difficult to tell. Amplification can become nuclear because obviously you have the ability to build a lot of different users on a lot of different content at scale. And what you see at the bottom it's actually not mine, but it's proof of users that have been verified by Twitter as real users that are actually all fake users that were created by AI. In terms of amplification, we've also talked a little bit here about hate speech and how it converges with terror. Amplification of hate speech is something that we really should be worried about. It's basically related to disinformation as well. The rise in anti-Semitism has been fueled by online hate speech campaigns that have been amplified. It's not just offensive, it's a security threat. And there's evidence of online hate speech leading to offline violence, as we've seen actually in the US, and it's increasing in all sorts of areas, not just political discourse. We're also seeing it in gaming and online sports. And in order to disarm phenomena like this, you really need to understand it. So some of the things that we've been working on, for instance, are tools for understanding these phenomena. So one thing that we've built are some AI tools for understanding narratives, tracking narratives and how they spread over users and over time. For instance, how online disinformation narratives actually ended up evolving into conversations that related to anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. It sounds like a stretch, but it does happen. Also tools for understanding hate mapping. So mapping hate via some AI algorithms that we've put together. So what we've done is we're tracking hate in different language across different platforms around the world and actually seeing how it spreads geographically around the world. And what we are able to do is to create analysis that shows a clear picture of the dynamics of hate and how they spread from one region to the other. And the same methodology is actually being used to track disinformation campaigns and how they spread geographically. So these are huge challenges. They require new methods. The methods I spoke about at the beginning are methods that we've been working on for a long time. They're very mature. I won't go too much into this, but we are developing advanced methods to basically tackle these things. Lots of large language models that have millions of parameters in order to be able to tackle these AI-enabled content creators. We're also developing lots of technology in terms of being able to do lots of multi-language analysis, building custom models for each of these domains, and deep learning models that are able to detect with great accuracy a lot of these different phenomenon. And also, as I mentioned before, training systems requires a lot of data, and that requires actually, at the beginning of a process, people to annotate the data. We're developing some methods for automating that process. And back to the metaverse, I'm switching gears completely here. This is something that's been touched on by my colleagues, but and it's not directly related to what I've spoken about before. But I do think it's something that we should all be thinking about. The metaverse as a new threat domain. So, the metaverse, everybody's talking about it, but what is it? What can happen there? The fact is that we don't actually know what it will be. We know that it has the potential to be, the next internet, the next version of the internet. We know that there's a massive amount of investment coming into this space, but what can happen there? So right now, not much is happening, but what will happen or what could happen in the future, it remains to be seen. Right now, what it's being used for is a lot of fun things. So gaming, attending events, interacting with brands, but then we also think about, for the metaverse, what the inherent risks are. So in the metaverse, users are realistic avatars. True identity is hard to ascertain. It's hard to figure out who's real and who isn't. Data is not just text, it's multidimensional. It's going to be behavioral in nature, so that's going to be something that we need to reckon with. And online harms can actually become probably near real life harms, because there will be all sorts of different elements within the metaverse that we aren't acquainted with yet, even sensorial aspects. So everything bad that can happen on social media has the potential to become a lot worse. And as with all fun places, bad things can happen. So what bad things? So just to name a few, I think Daniel actually touched on some of these before. It could become a new breeding ground for radicalization. We could see avatars come online and inspire people. We could actually, create a hologram of Osama bin Laden and have him come and give a speech and use that for radicalization. It can become an echo chamber for extremist content. So if right now content moderation is hard to do, it's going to become exponentially harder. It could actually become a real nightmare. It could also become a terrorist training camp. It could become a virtual base camp for ISIS or ISIS wannabes. And back to the threat of disinformation, it's also a place where we could see discrete campaigns using compelling avatars that, they become your friend and they tell you things that aren't necessarily true. What else? In the metaverse, you can practice high-risk things with a low risk. So you can simulate things. You can estimate what the impact of something could be with augmented or virtual reality. So you could potentially shoot up a shopping mall in the metaverse, or practice getting a bomb through the airport. Or you could figure out how many victims you might be able to take out in a terrorist attack. So the options are actually endless. So the questions I think we should ask ourselves about this new threat domain is, how would you detect an authentic security threat in the metaverse? That remains to be seen. Then there are some blurred lines. Is someone who's actually simulating a terrorist attack in the metaverse, are they actually committing a terrorist attack, or is that actually a terrorist act? What would happen if someone's digital twin is radicalized? Would they also be radicalized themselves in real life? And will the possibility, this is one I think that concerns me the most, will the possibility of building virtually potential targets and practicing the attack scenarios in the metaverse, could that increase the odds of terrorists actually being successful in their attacks? So I think these are important questions to ask ourselves. And unfortunately, I don't have the answer to all of those. But what I can tell you is that AI is going to be our tool for answering all of those questions. New threat scenarios require new AI. As we've seen in this presentation, every single thing that comes online requires a new approach. And I do believe that AI is basically what we have on our side for defeating all of these threats. Thank you.
Please. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank all of you. Before we move to the questions, discussion, and so on, a word of gratitude. Behind every conference, behind any session, there are the people in the shadows. People who do the real job. They don't sit here, they don't speak, they don't present, but they do the hard work. I would like to mention one of those, the assistant who worked with me on preparing this session, Ronen Jacob. Please, come on. The man in the shadow. Ronen did the job of organizing it, of making it so perfectly and smoothly run. He contacted you, bugged you about getting the information, the presentations, the title, the bios. I know, I made him do that. Thank you, Ronel. Now to the questions. I have two directions for the questions. First, if you have a question, let it end with a question mark, okay? Or if you want to preach, if you want to lecture, this is not the forum, we can do it later. Second, please direct your question to one of us. Say who is the one you want to ask. Now, there are two advantages of being a chairperson. One is that there is no time limit on your presentation, as I abused, you know it. And the second one that I'm entitled to ask the first question. So, Jennifer, the question is directed to you. You highlighted the use of AI, machine learning, to learn terrorist presence and use hate speech online. But the information you can detect is on the open web. And terrorists know what you do and monitor what you do. And they react to that. They move to the darknet, they move to coded language, they move to secret clouds, they used what I described as the dead drops. How can your methods, sophisticated as they are, updated AI, can overcome this challenge presented by, I would say, savvy, internet-savvy terrorists that know how to overcome your search?
Does it work? Yes. It's a good question. I think that's the focus of our methodology is for understanding how terrorists, not only how they speak, but how they behave. So one way of doing that is getting basically into their heads. So understanding their methods for actually evading this type of content, and working with partners who actually have the ability to tap into these different areas, because our area of expertise is obviously, it's AI and it's source agnostic in terms of the analysis, but what we do need to know are things like, kind of the behaviors that the expertise from practitioners bring, or expertise from academics like you.
Sure.
I didn't present it, but I'm also in research between academics and domain experts. So we have data science from one side and domain experts from the other side. We actually collect information from the dark web and deep web of jihadistic forums. And what we do is text classification, but in a way that is a reciprocal learning, meaning we have the machine from one side and the domain expert from the other side. There's iterations between them. And the idea is not to work on lexicon, on the words, but to understand phenomena, patterns, and concepts. One example, to try to detect an influencer in a darknet forum, to understand that this guy maybe can be a mentor to others, is not to look on analyze each word that he writes in his post, but actually to try to see if this guy is familiar with religious in a way that you can understand that he's a professional and not only someone that, quotes others or copy-paste from the Quran sentences. So this is another way, maybe, as a solution to this kind of question.
Yes. And then we'll open the floor to others.
Just to add that this is exactly the concept of AI. I mean, we don't want us, to teach the machine how to think. By concept, we want in the future that the AI will be able by itself to analyze how we think and even find new ways of communication by itself. This is the entire idea of artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Please. Can you introduce yourself? I guess people don't know you.
Just a researcher at ICT. I heard some of you, and I'm sorry that I didn't hear everybody, but I would like to refer to the metaverse for one moment. And I think Jennifer alluded to that, but I would like to emphasize something. The metaverse is a revolution. And we refer, in what I heard, to metaverse as another stage in the evolution of internet technology. So everything that we know in other platforms will be on metaverse, but it will be even bigger and better. Radicalization process, simulations, practicing, and so on and so forth. And I do believe that we need to refer to a metaverse as a new, not new dimension, new universe. And therefore, what we are going to see is terrorist attacks occurs on metaverse against metaverse facilities, against NFTs, against concerts, against business gatherings, and so on and so forth, as a world of new terrorism altogether. But since you've asked to end every comment with a question mark, so question mark.
I think you're right, Boaz. I'm terrified of that. Like I mentioned in my presentation, what I'm most terrified about is the ability to train and simulate. Because I think even though that can be done right now, I mean, we could argue that can be done in Google Maps, or that is being done as we speak with things like Google Maps. I think that's the most terrifying part. And then what I just thought of, Boaz, with your comment is, if a terrorist attack is taking place against a facility in the metaverse, what are the legal implications of this, right? Is this actually something that could be tried as a terror-related incident? What do you think, Sabrina?
Yeah. I think that's always a problem, because you always see it after it happened, not before, and that's the problem, and that's also the hope for AI development. So you have. That's why we try to be within the process of implementing these AI detectors, for example, so that we have a catalog to this legal and ethical requirements, so that it will work, and not afterwards everybody will say, not everybody, but the court, for example, will say, no, you are going too far.
One thing I think is a challenge there is also the fact that everything is going to be decentralized, and it's not, the regulatory issues will obviously come online, because this is a new space. It's not owned by anybody, much like the internet was when it first started. It was the wild, wild west. Obviously there are major players, Meta and other ones, but it's going to be interesting.
And another thing, of course, the European regulation differs completely from the US, for example, and inside the EU it differs. So that's another problem, that you have this diversity of regulation.
Questions from the audience, please.
Just to add? Just to add, no, sorry. Just to add that this is not going to happen. This is happening right now. We see, for example, in some metaverses, we see military groups. And you have even in Roblox groups for 100,000 people, you know, training in a metaverse. And this is really open. And it really takes time to get into those groups. You need to learn how they behave. You need to learn how they work. You need to understand the codes. They are running tests where basically millions of people trying to, you know, accept it to these armies. And again, this thing is huge, okay? And this is happening right now.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, I have a question. Since we are in a summit of counter-terrorism, and you're experts, you said that the future is on AI. What do you recommend to the law enforcement authorities to prevent what is happening? Okay, I mean, we see almost every 2 weeks in US, regardless of the regulation, that has been a terror attack in a school, and somebody came up in the morning and started to kill somebody. And when it comes to the post-mortem analysis, he was advising in the social networks, today is the day. A lot of technology has been presented, a lot of nice passwords, and how it comes that there is no, what do you recommend in order to prevent the guy that will wake up in the morning and say, today is the day that I'm going to make it?
So I don't have a clear answer, but I have few advice. First of all, as I told you, as I see in my previous word and even in these words, intel organizations are trying to find machines that are profiling. Why? Because by the end, they need to get into a specific guy, and after that, to arrest him and to give him to trial. And if you don't have a real name, so you lose your fight. And this is not right, because one layer before is understanding the target audience that you as an intel organization interested in. While you are defining this target audience, and there is in any areas target audience. There are terrorists, there are regular people that are being radicalized, there are people that are insane, all those things. And I think that the intel organizations are losing the level before to understand what they are facing with. And if you describe those target audience, now you can put an AI machine and start to see the regular level of groups and individuals, and you can see a leverage of changing in those target audience. So I think that there is an answer, but it's going back, first of all, to perception of how inter-organizations are taking their job and think that they can implement it. And it's the time to put a lot of effort in technology and not in analysts. This is the simple way to recruit another 100 analysts.
I think that one of the problems that fighting online terrorism and hate speech is a cat and a mouse game. That is, we see what they do and we try to respond. They see what we did to respond and respond to that. And it's a never-ending game. One way out of it is, instead of trying to find out what they do today or yesterday and fight it, is try to guess what they will do tomorrow and prevent it. What I mean by that is not just chasing and fighting terrorism on online platforms as they are today, but try to think what will be the next Zuckerberg, the next Facebook, the next Twitter, the next YouTube, and maybe the next Bitcoin. And think about the future evolving or developing platforms, and try to develop them in a way that will be, I would say, less victimized by the forces of evil. How can that be? Very simple. Cooperation between private and public domains. If you will, for example, give the developers of new programs any initiative, any rewards for considering terrorism and hate speech when they designed the platforms, then the next Zuckerberg, unlike the one we have now, will think about, maybe it will be profitable for me to have the next Facebook more protected against abuse by terrorist and hate speech. So what I suggest is try not to think only about the past and the present, try to be proactive and fight the terrorism online of tomorrow. Any more questions?
I can also comment on that. One, I agree. We need a collaboration. I will also add the civilian sector, NGOs, academics, to this ecosystem or system between private sector and the government sector. Two things. One, about the platforms. I think it doesn't really matter, because once you shut them down on Facebook, they will pop up again on 8chan or 4chan and others. So we will continue to be they will be one step ahead of us. Meaning we need good analysts and good technology to deal with it, to detect it, to analyze it, and to find ways to respond. What we see today on the law enforcement side is great systems purchased by many great Israeli companies or companies that come from other places that deal with huge amount of data on the OSINT web side mainly to provide what is not classified and can be on the open source. And we have analysts with experience, but what I see that they are suffering from dealing with too much of big data and data analytics, and not being able to receive the right tools, the right training, and the right methodology to use these systems and to really detect threats that are on the online. So I think we need to put, the law enforcement needs to put the analyst in the middle of the discussion, to collaborate with the other units in his agency, but to understand that it's not enough that he now collects a huge amount of data, but we need more ways to analyze it, using AI to do so, but also the visualization of it, because there are many domains. It's not only open source or web or Facebook or Twitter, Telegram, and so on. We need to find ways to cross-check between them, and this maybe is our main challenge of AI in the near future, to assist with tools to law enforcement.
We have a question from Professor Maruf.
I just want to add that is to your question regarding the AI detection, is that how do you deal with the challenges that I still see on Facebook and Twitter? You have, of course, the use of Arabic, which is a real challenge, and blurring of the pictures, okay? And also That is, you have a lot of videos on YouTube. They are produced by the Islamic State, but under other appellations. For instance, I can give you an example now. On YouTube, it's still hackers.com, that is a lot of mobilization videos, but they use other, that is, appellations. And also they use anagrams. That is, they write the words, that is, with disorder, or with slashes, or with dots. And I still see them, and they succeed, because they know also, as you know, they know that is the keywords you are looking for, and so they change them. Jihad, I can write it in English, but I can write it with GH, okay? And then, of course, it works, but in Arabic. And the most important thing that the machine cannot detect is ornamentation. We have bots to ornament words. We ornament words that is of the accounts, of the profiles, and also that is of the content. So there is how that is AI deals with these challenges, and also electronic rates. Electronic rates, it means that it's a coordination attack. It means that sympathizers will attack a page, and they will bombard it with hundreds of tweets, videos, and images at the same time to take it down. How does the machine react to this electronic rate? And I have participated in many rates, and I have seen how it works, and it succeeds. Okay, so how does your machine work? That is on that. Regarding deepfakes, can we consider the graphic designs that the Islamic State produces as deepfakes? And there is, for me, there is an artistic and an innovative side. That is that your presentation has not been broached upon, because still when we produce graphic designs, there is a quality control, there is a hard work, and it's not only that is the work of software, but it's also the work of human creation. So what about...
Let us stop with two questions, one to Jennifer, and then the second one to Nitzan.
Your first question, which was, I think, a lot of different questions, the only answer I can give you is to stay ahead of this type of behavior by implementing custom machine learning and deep learning models for this, because what you need to understand is that not any algorithm, not just one algorithm fits all of the different scenarios that you mentioned. So that actually ties back to what Gabi was talking about in terms of how do you stay ahead. So staying ahead is being involved with practitioners who are actually witnessing these behaviors online, looking at these things, academics. Unfortunately, this doesn't really happen quite often. It's very rare to have like an institute with like the ICT plus practitioners plus companies like mine coming together to build it. But that is actually the dream scenario, is to have that sort of a triad, so you can build these models to be able to detect those types of things, but they continue to be a challenge.
I think that the main challenge in this kind of technology is that technology moves really quickly, in advance, but us humans not. We basically stay the same, right? So, looking, for example, at Facebook, I think some of the discussion is not just what are the challenges, but also whether Facebook wants to do anything about it, because Facebook basically, clings to Section 230, claiming that this is the freedom of speech and you don't want to do anything. And you have small sites like Pornhub and others that say that they will not cooperate with that and don't want to have deepfakes. So from my perspective, I think that the challenge is also not just technological. It also comes with regulations and laws. It also comes with us raising awareness to what is deepfakes and how, us society will learn how to live with it, A few years ago, none of us would have considered manipulating images. And today, when you look at an image, you know that it's photoshopped, including the one in the first slide that I have. So basically, from my perspective, deepfakes pose a challenge, but I think it more pose a challenge on us as a society rather than a technological challenge, because I am sure that the challenge itself will be resolved. And even producing a very realistic fake video, it will be easier over time. And we have a lot of creative enemies that can do a lot with that. So.
I'm a researcher too, if you want to call me that. I'm very new to this, but one thing I look at, and this is really an observation, is you're constantly looking at cause and effect, and what's missing, I think, in the team that I'm looking at is a psychological approach. So the problem with what you're dealing with is that even if something is fake, you are talking to people who want to believe things. And unless we can unpick that, dealing with this from purely a technological approach, you're not going to achieve the ends that you need. So as you're moving forward and you're thinking, you need to bring in your team someone who understands the psychology of human nature. So it's an observation as opposed to a question.
Thank you for the remark. I think that there's a lot missing here, more than just psychology. And we didn't discuss financing terrorism online, the rhetoric, semiotics. We're only 6 of us, and so many topics to cover. However, I think the question could be answered better by directing you to other sessions. This is the first session this morning. I know well the organizers of this conference, and I'm sure that in the next couple of days, actually 2 days, and the workshops, will give, I would say, a wider perspective on the questions that you raised than the 6 of us. So let me now move to the conclusion, because we have to have a break before the next session, and say that despite the fact that we covered only a part of the territory, I think this was a very interesting combination of experts from different places. We had academia, and we had practitioners, we had scholars, and we had a judge. We had people who deal with fighting back, with detecting, or people who look at the challenges presented by online terrorism. And I think in some ways, we didn't answer all the questions, and certainly not covered all the perspectives, but some of them were really discussed here. So let me thank you all for coming here, for being here, and for all of you for participating in this first workshop this morning. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you for coming. Toda rabah.